Hello, folks. This is Dr. DeValley, and this slide lecture is about what is culture, what is the nature of human culture. Um, okay, so culture is the social that refers to the learned, socially acquired traditions of thought and behavior found in human societies. It is a socially acquired lifestyle that includes pattern, repetitive ways of thinking, feeling, and acting. Uh, Culture is what we've learned how to think and how to act, how to behave. Now, it's not idiosyncratic behavior, but it's the behavior that is the norm of the group. For example, the way you behave when you're in church, or the way you behave when you're in school, or when you are in a courthouse. In other words, these are standardized ways of behaving and thinking that you and other members of your culture share. And that is what is meant. And it's also learned. It's totally learned behavior. Now, for a little levity, this is uh, me and my beautiful wife Vicky. We went fishing a year or so ago in St. Augustine, Florida. Vicky is the gal in the middle. The guy is the captain of the boat, and the woman on the right is a friend. Now, I'm shown with a very dangerous stingray that I caught. Even though it was only 8 inches across, the captain would not let it in the boat, but cut loose the line. Now, Vicky and her friend only caught sea bass. Their fish were about 26 inches long, weighed about 12 pounds each, and were eatable. But catching these should not be compared with the superior skill involved in capturing the more dangerous but useless 8-inch stingray. So it's clear from these results who the better fisherman is. Now, some anthropologists view culture as a pure idea or a sort of a computer program in people's heads that influences behavior under various circumstances. Clifford Geertz has said culture is best seen as a set of control mechanisms, plans, recipes, rules, and instructions. In other words, it's sort of a program for what is appropriate behavior and thinking and acting as a member of culture. Now, there are some distinctions between society, subculture, and culture. Society refers to an organized group of people who share a region as a homeland and who depend on its members for the survival and well-being of the group. For example, the United States is a society. Its members share a common homeland. Now, a subculture, each society has an overall culture, but most complex societies also contain groups of people who have lifestyles that are not shared by the rest of society. Anthropologists call these subcultural characteristics of such a group a subculture. For example, in the United States, there are many recent immigrant groups. They bring with them their values and their traditional culture with them, and it takes a generation or two before they acquire all of aspects of American culture. And so during that period of transition, they really become what is called a subculture. And that's how to understand what that concept means. Now, enculturation is the process by which we acquire culture. It is partially conscious and partially unconscious. Learned experience where the older generation invites, compels, or induces the younger generation to adopt values, traditions, and rules of behavior. For example, in our culture, punctuality is an important value. So when you were 4 or 5 years old, your mother, when you started school, used to tell you, get up, it's time to go to school, don't be late for school. In other words, she was impressing you how to be at the school on time. Maybe about then you also learned how to tell time. And you got your first watch even. And if you got to school late, the teacher would admonish you. And gradually you learn that punctuality is an important value in our culture. Now, why would we have that value? Well, our work units as adults is not the family. We work in places different from where we live, and humans from different families come together at the same time and the same place to work, all doing different aspects of a job. Uh, School is like that. For example, the traditional classroom. The instructor and the students have to be at the class at time on the specific day in order for the class to take place. Um, Unlearned learning gets around that, but the traditional classroom situation is that way. And so that's why punctuality is an important value in our society. When I was younger, I did field work in the Canary Islands, which are a group of islands off the northwest coast of Africa. And there, the economy was essentially peasant family farms. And so the work unit was the family. They lived together and they worked in the fields next to the house. So punctuality was not an important concept with them. Many of them didn't even have watches. So when you made an appointment with a Canary Islander, I mean, he could show up an hour early or 3 hours late. You never knew. And the few Europeans that lived on the island, it used to drive them crazy because they'd make an appointment with a workman and the guy wouldn't show up because they came from a culture where punctuality was important, but in the Canary Islands it wasn't. So that's an example of a value that is enculturated in one culture but not in another. The Canary Islanders had other values that we didn't have. For example, obedience to parents was a very strong value. The father did not have to hit the children. He just had to look at the child sternly and the kid did what the father wanted. Very different concept than in our culture. Now, another important concept is ethnocentrism. That's the belief that one's own patterns of behavior are always natural, good, beautiful, and important, and the right way to do things. And that people in other cultures who do things differently than you, well, they're, savages, they do things irrationally, and it doesn't make sense. That is the heart of all racism, is this concept of ethnocentrism. Now, contrary to that is also the concept of cultural relativism, which is that a society should be understood in terms of its own values and standards, not by your values and standards, but the values and standards of the people of that culture. Now, not all human customs are healthy, so there's a limit to this cultural relativism. For example, the Nazis' attitudes about Jews was held by most Germans in the 1930s and early 40s, but that didn't make it that it was acceptable. So there's a limit to cultural relativism. Now, there are some remaining slides, and what I'm going to do is let you page through them at your own reading pace, and they won't need necessarily a talk over by me. Well, that's all, folks. I just want to thank you for watching and listening.